Let's try to understand the if-else statement in JavaScript. If-else statement is widely used to conditionally perform some certain logic in JavaScript. You can just write some expression which will result into a Boolean value. Based upon that, it will decide either to execute the truthy part or the falsy part of if-else statement. Let's see with a couple of examples. So here I'm trying to calculate an even number, for example, and based upon that, I'm deciding a flag will be true or false, and I want to execute some function. So let's see here, I'm just creating a number equals to 5. And here I'll say let results equals to number 5 modulus 2 equals to 0. So this expression is going to result with true or the false. Now let's confirm. Okay, that's perfect. It's a false because it's an odd number. Let's try to keep an even number here. We should get a true. Yes, we are getting it. Now we have confirmed inside the result variable, we are getting true or false. So why can't we use it in an if-else statement to display it's an even number or it's an odd number? So simply we'll say result, it's even number, it's odd number. So now when I'm specifying if and in this brackets, I'm specifying some result. So this is expecting a Boolean expression. And of course, result is a Boolean expression, which is currently true in this case. If it's true, so we are going to execute the if block. If it's false, then we will execute the else block. Let's say in this case, we are getting true. So we should able to get display our first if block here. Yes, it's an even number. And not only one line, I can also execute more lines over there. For example, something. So it's our choice how much big code we want to write under this particular if statement. Now let's try to add an odd number here. In this case, it will become false and we need to execute the else block. Yes, it's an odd number and the else block is getting executed. So the if and the else block not only depends on true and the false, it depends on truthy or the falsy values. Anyhow, for any value at the end, there will be conversion to the true and false that we'll see in upcoming examples as well. For now, let's try to make use of if-else statement to search some object or to search some element inside array where we can decide we found an element or we didn't found an element. So let me just comment out this code. I'm just creating an array here of some element. That's good. And I'll create one more array where I want to figure out an index. I want to figure out an index of a certain element. So I want to see the index of element 2, for example. So element 2 is present inside my array. So of course, we are going to get some index in this case. Let's say index. Okay. So for element 2, what is the index here? That's 1. Perfect. For element 1, what's an index? It will be 0. And if I try to search something which is not available in my array, what I will get in index of that is -1. So with this, we understood a condition. If there is a -1 is being returned out of this function expression, so it means that we are not able to find the desired value. So what I can do here now, I'll say if the index is equals to -1. So with this condition, what I'm confirming? I'm confirming that the desired value that you're trying to search is not available in the array. So I'll simply say console not found. In else block, I'll say found. Okay, let's see the outcome. We should get a not found here. That's perfect, not found. and try to search something which is available, we should get found in this case. So this is how we can build some condition and expression to have some certain logic. So whenever you need to write an if-else statement, first of all, try to decide what condition you need to write here, which condition will help you to get the desired outcome. Let's try the same scenario with array of object, which is a common situation arise when you write some large code. So this is again a one more array, for example, array of products, in which the ID of the product will mention, then the product name will mention. Let me add a couple of products here. Okay. So I'm having an array here, which is consist of three objects, three elements in that. So now I want to search some object, like for example, in this particular array, the ID2 object is present or not. And if it is present, we want to display that. And if it is not present, so I should also able to display the product you are searching is not available. So firstly, I need some logic to figure out some required object from this array. So I can use a find method out of the array. So let product will say, or maybe the results out of this array, I'll say find. I'll use the predicate function here, and I'll say for each and every object, whatever ID is there, I want to check if ID is matching with 2. If ID is matching with 2, so this find function will return you the corresponding object. If you want to confirm that, let's try to see what exactly present inside this result variable. Yes, so we are getting a perfect object here. Now let's try to search something which is not available inside our array. I'll search ID 5. So there is no object present with the ID 5. So it's interesting to see in this case what we will get inside the results. So we are getting undefined. So with this, we understood a condition, how to identify that required results are not found. So what we will do here now, we'll say if we got some results, so say found product and else not found product. Let's see the outcome. We should get not found product. And here, why we are getting not found product here? Firstly, we are getting undefined. So to execute a if block, we need a truthy statement. What I mean by truthy statement, all the objects, all the numbers, all the string, any value is a truthy value in JavaScript. If you are giving a null, if you are giving undefined, if you are providing zero, these are the falsy values in JavaScript. So in this case, we are getting undefined. So of course, we'll go inside an else block. Let's see and try to give some value which is present. So right now in this case, the result is an object. And if I'm providing object here, so object is also a truthy statement. And that's the reason, even though it's not a true false, but this object will get treated as a true statement and our if block will get executed. So the product found. So this is how the truthy and the falsy statement works in JavaScript. Let's try to understand the similar example when we are getting some data from the REST API. So I'll copy the similar example here and try to give some variable called data here. And in that, for example, we are getting some data here from the backend. Let's say ID is 2 and the product name. So now this data is coming from a REST API, for example, you can consider that. So we are not sure what data we are getting from the backend. So the backend sometimes might give you the null values or maybe the undefined or maybe anything unexpected. So how you will confirm you got the data and you need to proceed further. So for example, here in this particular data, you're having an object. That's good. No worries. And along with the object, you also want to confirm there is an ID, there is a product, then only you want to do the further operations. So you can write some certain conditional logic for that. Firstly, we'll confirm how to identify there is an object or maybe there is a null or there is an undefined like this. So firstly, we'll try this. So for that, I'll say, for example, if I'm getting some data, okay, so it's a truthy value because it's an object, right? So we'll say data received, and here we'll say no data received. Okay, that's good. So let's confirm the outcome. Yes, data received. And instead of data, for example, we got a null value from the backend, no data received. Let's say undefined. So these all are the falsy values. And what's the truthy value here? The object that we are using. Okay. Now, not only this object, you also want to confirm the data which is present inside of these objects are correct. So what you will do here, along with this data, also you would like to check, for example, inside the data, there should be some ID. In along with that, inside the data, there should be also something called as product name. Then only you will say data received, or maybe we can say in correct format like this. Let's see. So we are getting the data received in correct format. Now let's say from the backend instead this ID is missing. So we are checking here, we should get an object. We should also get an ID compulsory and we should also get a product name compulsory. So we are combining these three conditions with and. But here the ID is missing. So we should not be able to execute the if part in this case. Let's see. No data received. Of course, we can write it in a more better way by mentioning the ID is missing or maybe the product is missing that we can do with when we write a nested if else statement. But this is how we can make use of the if else block to just identify the data is received in a correct format or not. And finally, just a shorthand expression for the if, which is also possible that you should be knowing. For example, if and let's say console hi. So you can just write a if statement with a small single line as well when there is only a single line. But of course, if you have a multiple line in your if else statement, you should not be doing that. Only one line will be considered. So here with the if only this one line is considered, if you want to get this both statement considered under the if, you have to mention block here. This is how the if works with different combinations and help us to write a conditional logic in JavaScript. Let's see how the if-else if works in JavaScript. It is also known as if-else ladder because we can specify a list of conditions. It will get executed whichever condition match. Let's see how it works. So for example, here we need to calculate, for example, a score and we need to, based upon that score, we need to give a rating. But it's a good one, very good one, or the student is failed like that. So the score over here is available like this. So this is out of 100, you can consider. If the score is above 90, we'll say it's very good, excellent. And if it's above 60, we'll say good. And if it's below 50, we'll say fail. So like this, we just need to generate some scenarios. So we'll simply say if the score is greater than 90, so we'll say it's very good. And else if the score is greater than, let's say 60, we'll say good. Else if the score is greater than 50, we'll say okay. At last, if anything else, we'll say fail. So how exactly this if else ladder is working, that's important to understand. So firstly, there are four different blocks. This is the first block, this is the second block, this is the third, and this is the fourth block of our if else ladder. Out of this four, only one block will get executed. And the sequence of condition checking will start from here, then here, then here, and at last it goes here. So firstly, when the number is greater than 60, so you might be thinking like, for example, this condition also satisfies that. This is also satisfying. No, this not this one, and yeah, this condition is also satisfying because it's 50 greater than 60. The condition checking goes from here, then here, here, and here. So firstly, number 60 is there. So first condition will be checking if the score is greater than 90, it says no. So it goes to the next condition. If the score is greater than 60 here, here also no, because we are equal to 60. So this condition will also fail. When it comes to the next condition, it says that your score 60 is greater than 50, then we'll say yes. And this else if block will get executed. After this execution, no matter how many else if you are having or the else is having, everything is being skipped. Only one particular block out of the if else ladder will get executed after the condition match. So here we should be able to get an output called OK. That's perfect. And now let's see, I'm giving here 95. So first condition will only satisfied and rest all the conditions and everything will be completely ignored. Let's see, we should get a very good remark here. That's good. And I'll try to give something, for example, 40. So all the conditions will fail in this case, and at last it goes to the else block. And if you see here, it says that failed. We can also enhance this logic a little bit more. Why? Because if I'm giving a minus 40 here, which is a not scenario, because the score can be 0 to 100 only, it cannot be negative value. So in that case, if you want to have some additional logic, what you can do, you can simply add one more else if and mention a special condition over there. If your score is below 40 and if your score is above or greater than equals to 0, then you say failed. And in any another case, it could be negative value or it could be anything. For that, you should say invalid score. So currently with minus 40, we should get invalid because the input data itself is an invalid one. So this is the way the else block will be really useful. Yes, we are getting an invalid score. And let's see, I'm giving 30 here. So I should get failed. Yes, it's a failed one. So this is how the if else ladder works in JavaScript. Let's try to understand the nested if in JavaScript. So we can do at any number of nesting level in JavaScript, but we should restrict it to a certain level. Otherwise, the code will get much complicated. Let's see a simple scenario where we can use a nested if here. So in this case, let's say this data we are receiving from a backend. So we are not sure they will give in which format. So we need to cross check it by applying some if else statement. So firstly, what I will do, I'll just say if I'm receiving some data, no matter what exactly in that data, this if is confirming you have received some data. It could be anything. And if you are not receiving any data, then it will go to the else statement, because if there is something, so it will become a truthy statement. And if there is nothing, I mean, there is null, or there is undefined, it will become a falsy statement and it will go inside an else block. So let's try to write here. We got the data. No data received, for example. Okay. So with these two statements are confirming you have received the data or not. In this case, we have received the data, so we should got the data. And if you are not getting any data, let's say a null, which will become a falsy value after coming here, and it will execute the false statement. So no data received. So just only receiving the data is not sufficient for you. You need to do more on top of that. You also need to check what data you have received. That also consists of few properties in it very well. So here what you will say after saying got the data, you will say if the data is consist of ID. Okay. Along with that, and data consists of product name. So then only you'll say data is correct. Otherwise, you will say data is not correct. So you can see here inside if block, we are getting a huge area to work after getting the data. But again, after getting the data, we need to check the data is correct or not. So again, we are applying some if else in a nested block. So we can do again one more if at any other level. Even you want to go more deeper, you can again apply if else statement here because you are like you can do the nesting of the if else at any level. So now we should get the data and after that we should get data is correct. That's perfect. Now let's see the ID is missing from the backend data we are receiving. So what will happen? First, it will come into the if block because there is something data and it will print got the data and it will say false for this ID and it will say true for this, which will ultimately execute else block because this false and true will become false and it will print data is not correct. So you can also make it more specific. For example, data is not correct, but it is not specified like which data is incorrect. For example, data is correct is good. Okay, no problem. But we want to specify which data is incorrect. Here we are getting an else block to understand there is something missing. What exactly is missing? You want to check that specifically and inform the user. So you can again write a nested if here. If data.id is missing. So I'll just apply a not symbol here because I want to say a not operator on that. So I'll say ID is missing. And here I'll say product name. Product name is missing. Let's see. So in this case, we are missing with an ID. Let me add an ID here of one. And this time, let me just remove the product. Product name is missing, including not only the product name. Let's say I have done some spelling mistake here because this is not a case sensitive one. So, sorry, it's a case sensitive. So this is a small n and we are checking with a capital N. So it's not matching the data type or maybe the variable name. So there also it will say missing with product name. So this is how we can write if else statement with any nested logic to perform a very narrow operation in JavaScript.